Good evening. I'm Leland Vittert. Welcome to the program. Congress finally says that they will ban lawmakers from profiting on stocks while in office. We're going to expose the loopholes built into the new ethics package even before it passes. Plus, love hurts. Haven't you heard how the empty shelves crisis threatens to make American men write nice cards rather than buy flowers this Valentine's Day? It's going to be okay, fellas. Take some time, write some drafts. We have some ideas. But first, February 9th, 2022, the day mask mandates died in America. Not because of science, but because of politics. Politico writes Democrats are losing their religion on universal masking, just not at the White House. Across the country, top Democratic officials are relaxing mask mandates. For 2 years, it's been follow the science. The science hasn't changed, although the CDC director admitted today she isn't sure what the science is. Stand by for that. But first, COVID deaths are up almost 10% this week. 2,500 Americans a day are dying of COVID. What possible scientific explanation is there to lift the mask mandate? Guess what? There isn't. That's the point. There never was a scientific reason for the mask mandate in the first place. It was always about politics. Want proof? Here it goes. Governors in California, Oregon, Connecticut, New York, Illinois, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts, America's most liberal states, have all lifted their mask mandate within 48 hours of each other, with nothing about the science changing. Think about it. Of the 9 Democratic governors who defied the White House and the CDC to lift their mask mandates, 7 are up for re-election this November. We're not far away from primary season either. In journalism, we are trained not to believe in coincidences. The White House, though, says we must listen to the science, effectively admitting the governors listed above are wrong, clearly putting lives at risk and thus playing politics.
Public health guidance we're providing meets the moment we're in. We recognize people are tired of the pandemic. They're tired of wearing masks. I bet all of you are. I certainly know I am. We all understand that. But that what our focus is on is looking at the data and the science.
Okay, data, science, data. Who should we look to for those answers? The CDC, of course. Curiously, Drs. Fauci and Walensky have been missing in action over the past few weeks. The people who were on morning television almost every day for months are curiously unavailable for a TV interview. But Walensky finally addressed the media to let us know what science says about ending the mask mandates and the perpetual pandemic.
You mentioned the specific benchmarks on hospitalization that you are looking to for when it will be a good time to change some of this guidance around masking, both in schools and generally in public for adults. What exactly will that benchmark be?
And we're evaluating rates of transmission as well as rates of severe outcomes as we look at updating and reviewing our guidance.
Next question, please.
Next question, please. You heard that correctly. 2 years of mask mandates, 900,000 deaths, people dying alone in hospitals, countless businesses destroyed, lives destroyed, a shocking rise in teen suicide from social isolation, countless missed milestones and events with loved ones, and the CDC doesn't even know what criteria they will use to blow the whistle. Somehow they weren't really interested in figuring that out over the past 2 years. And clearly, somehow, the White House is okay with this. Chris Hahn, host of The Aggressive Progressive, is with us now. Chris, I'm guessing you have a problem with something I said. It wouldn't be a Wednesday afternoon if I didn't. Go ahead.
I don't have a lot of problems with what you said. You might be surprised. I think that you're framing it a little bit partisan. Let me just be very clear. I have never liked mask mandates after we had a vaccine. I like vaccine mandates because vaccines keep you from going to the hospital in 99% of the cases of people who get it. We put on masks originally in this crisis to keep people out of the hospital so that we didn't overwhelm our healthcare system with COVID patients, and then people who had heart attacks or broke their bones couldn't get beds in hospitals. Here in New York, our mask mandate was about to expire. The governor didn't extend it because hospitalizations are down in New York. They are down in New Jersey. We were at the front end of the Omicron variant, just as we were for the original variants.
You may be
COVID-19.
onto something about mask mandates not working in the era of vaccines. We may disagree or agree to disagree whether they worked in the not era of vaccines. But if you look at from May or June on, Arizona versus California, Arizona is in yellow or orange. California is in black. Arizona did not put a mask mandate on. California did on December 15th. California's daily cases per million actually spiked higher and faster than Arizona. So the place with the mask mandate was worse off than the place without the mask mandate. I'm wondering, why do you think we see this disconnect between blue state governors who have been all about masks and the White House who is saying keep the masks on? How is that not politics?
Well, there's politics in every decision that a public official makes. They got to weigh the pros and cons of it, the risks versus the benefits to the public, right? Here in New York, look, COVID ran through it. I think everybody I know either had it or was living with somebody who had it. It ran through this state. People who were vaccinated had a bad cold. People who weren't vaccinated, 20% of them wound up in the hospital. But for the most part, hospitalizations have come down. We've got to look at outcomes, and we can't. And one thing I got to be very clear: I don't like treating everybody the same. If you are vaccinated and healthy, you should not be treated the same as somebody who is unvaccinated and unhealthy.
Yet
we have
so
to be
many,
very, very clear about that.
Yet so many governors did. Why?
Because it was the easier thing to do. Just say everybody has to put a mask on or else. I believe that we need to be very clear. Get vaccinated or risk your place in society. Risk your place. Look, get vaccinated or risk your hospital bed should there not be enough hospital beds for vaccinated people who need them.
I've had some doctors on. I've asked that very question. They were not happy with your idea, but the point's well made. Biden's approval rating.
They take an oath. They take an oath. They take an oath to do no harm, right? So they don't want to turn people away. But we have to do a public health message.
Let's be honest, Chris. You have taken no such an oath.
No, I didn't. None.
All right. Biden's approval rating is now, I think, the lowest it's ever been, below 40% in the Real Clear Politics average, 39.8%. I know I'm cynical. I was in D.C. for a long time. What is the over-under on when Ron Klain, the president's chief of staff, thinks the picture of the president with the mask hurts more than it helps, declares, what is it, 6 weeks or 8 weeks from now, before St. Patrick's Day or just after we have the spring of freedom and the president declares victory?
Well, Ron Klain is a friend of mine. We got to look at the numbers, right? If we start to see the death count come down, if we see hospitalizations come down, if vaccinations go up, I think we could start to declare victory. Omicron was a serious threat to people who weren't vaccinated, but people who were vaccinated had a very, very minimal, it rounded to zero chance of ending up in the hospital, especially if you were healthy. If you had some other pre-existing condition, it went up somewhat. But if you were healthy and you were vaccinated, you weren't getting hospitalized, and you sure as hell weren't dying from it.
Interestingly enough, there's a bet that we never played the tape on, which was on Build Back Better, on when the vote was going to be. I didn't hold you on that one, but I'm going to hold you on this one. What's the over-under for the Rose Garden speech where President Biden takes the mask off and says, victory is upon us, we have beaten COVID, everybody gets to get back to normal? What's the date?
May 1st. How's that?
All right, there it is. Good things come in the spring. Chris, good to see you. We appreciate it as always. Yeah.
Don't ever say I won't answer your questions.
That's why we have you as a lead guest, and we always admire and appreciate your opinion. It's a good conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I say other bad things about you, but not that. As state leaders ease mask requirements, some are drawing the line in arguably the most controversial place of all, schools. Masks will still be required in K through 12 schools in states like Illinois and California. Curious, but now students themselves are rising up. Just take a look at all these pictures. Groups have staged walkouts from coast to coast and everywhere in between. This is video from the Chicago suburbs, Portland, Oregon, Chino Hills, California, and Douglas County, Colorado. These kids and their parents say it is time to let the individual decide. It is exceedingly difficult to book mask enthusiasts on television. They do not want to come on and defend their opinion. Trust us, we've tried. With that, we bring in Brandon Michon, parent in Loudoun County, Virginia, which is now ground zero for the Tiger Mom and Dad movement. Brandon, it feels like since the time we booked you and now, things have changed so quickly, even Democrats in the state Senate are coming down on your guys' side.
That's right. I mean, this is a parents' movement that started about a year ago. We had a change in Virginia with the election of Glenn Youngkin. And now we're seeing people from both sides of the aisle say enough is enough. I actually had the opportunity of being in the room with Governor Youngkin on day one. I have the pin from the executive order number 2, which unmasks our children. So this means something to parents, and there are parents on both sides of the aisle that are saying enough is enough.
It's interesting, though, that for all of the change, the media has not quite gotten there. We're going to pull a soundbite from the previous segment. The mask rules that still members of the media are complaining about that are not in place. Take a listen.
And it's my parents who complain about my children having to wear a mask, but my kids don't mind it.
I'm having a hard time understanding what data this is based on.
Is this the right time to drop the mask mandate?
It's not the right time, Yasmin.
It's like Dr. Walensky is saying, on one hand, we don't agree with the local officials. We're not changing our guidance, but don't listen to us, listen to them.
Explain to me how the battles have now come down to the school board. School board recalls have hit an all-time high. In 2006 to 2020, average of 23 recalls against 52 members. In 2021, 84 recalls against 215 members. All my time at local news, I don't ever remember covering a single recall, and it's all shut up. Is this all over the issue of masks?
No, it isn't. I went viral about a year ago today, talking about having a plan to open schools. And then locally for Loudoun County, it was cover up of assaults and rapes. And then it was targeting parents on, Facebook groups. And now it's defying the executive order of the governor. What we have is COVID has exposed failed leadership at the local, state, and federal level.
But
on the local level, parents are...
Yeah, no, I understand that. But do you really believe that the school boards are, the way you're making it sound is the school boards have people on them who are actively trying to hurt kids, and this isn't just a disagreement of opinion?
No, but what it is you ask to be elected and you ask for a seat of leadership. Never before has a school board been responsible for making decisions whether or not to have schools open or shut. But now's the time for those strong leaders to step up and for them to make real decisions that impact people. And what it is they're making decisions, they're pointing fingers saying, you make it, you make it. And what we've seen in some states throughout the country is the local leaders have said, we are going to lead. We're not going to lead from above. We're going to lead locally. And, we need more change, not just locally, but in the federal level. And I've announced my candidacy for Congress because I want to see change on the national level, because we're making progress locally with people being involved. For Virginia, we've made change on the state level, and we're going to do it on the federal level this year in the midterm elections, and hopefully quick, I'm that candidate.
Real quick, Brandon, though, interesting you brought that up, because earlier segments, so much of this is about politics. Glenn Youngkin obviously ran and won on the schools issue, the masks issue, CRT, education, on and on. Do you worry from a political standpoint that this drastic change by Democrats is actually going to hurt Republicans' chances in the midterms?
Look, this is when the music's coming to an end.
They've taken away a real arrow in your quiver.
Sure, but here's the thing. Those children, like I said, the freshmen and sophomores in college, they are now voters. They are not going to forget that those people who are asking for re-election were the ones that were keeping them out of those life experiences. The parents are not going to forget that. I'm Brandon Michon. I'm a parent who's stepping up for my family. I'm stepping up for this country. People can go to brandonforcongress.com and find out more. But we need more leaders. We need more, people who are not career politicians stepping up. Glenn Youngkin's an example of that, who are saying enough is enough. We need change now. And together, we are going to raise the bar. This is not about me individually. This is the voice of millions, if not hundreds of millions, who want to see change.
Yeah, well, you make a very good point about education being an issue. It's certainly what Glenn Youngkin won on. Education became a proxy for so much else. Whether or not that works in 2022, and for you, we'll look forward to covering and talk about it and have you back to do it. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Leland.
Yeah, appreciate it. All right. Where the White House once promised to get every American out of Afghanistan and didn't, they are quite clear to Americans in Ukraine ahead of a possible Russian invasion right now. To American citizens who might be trapped, the White House is saying you are on your own. American paratroopers continue to land in Poland and are deploying to the border with Ukraine. The White House approved a plan for soldiers to help Americans in Ukraine, but only from the Polish side of the border. Some 30,000 Americans are now in Ukraine and might need a way out. But when Russian troops and tanks roll into Ukraine, any stuck American would need to get to the border by themselves. No evacuation flights, no evacuation plans using the U.S. military. Today, the Pentagon spokesman said this.
I can't rule out the fact that these soldiers could be used with to some degree with evacuation assistance on the other side of that border. And certainly they're going to be prepared to do that.
All right, there it is. We bring in Kellie Meyer in Washington. Kellie, good evening.
Good evening, Leland. Well, members of the 82nd Airborne Division out of Fort Bragg are trained specifically for these kinds of circumstances. The Pentagon says they are preparing them to respond. But as you said, not when it comes to going into Ukraine. Both the Pentagon and the president have made clear there will be no U.S. troops on the ground in Ukraine. The State Department clearly trying to avoid a repeat of last August by telling Americans in Ukraine, if you don't leave, we won't come get you. But Leland, Americans we spoke to in Ukraine say they're not going anywhere, instead relocating from Kyiv, the capital, to western Ukraine near the Polish border, a NATO ally. But they tell us right now that land border is closed due to COVID restrictions between EU and non-EU countries. Leland?
Yeah, you have to wonder whether the 82nd Airborne would at least provide a buffer inside of Poland for that, Poland being the NATO ally. Russia isn't, of course, the only adversary the White House has to deal with. We're understanding that Iran just announced a new long-range missile, and to really drive home the message, they've named it after a Jewish castle that Muslim warriors took in the early days of Islam. I guess we don't have to wonder who the target is. What do we know about the missile, and how's it play into the Iran nuclear talks?
Well, Leland, this missile is a real problem for both the U.S. and Israel. The long-range missile has a reported range of 900 miles, putting pretty much every U.S. base in the region and Israel in striking distance. And since it uses solid fuel, the Iranians can fire this from pretty much any mobile launcher. And it's no coincidence that this is all being unveiled one day after the U.S. and Iran started talks to revive Tehran's nuclear deal and to limit Iran's nuclear capability. The White House says progress is being made, but still blames the Trump administration for nixing the agreement in the first place. Take a listen.
As we noted back, I believe in December, the president asked his team to prepare a range of contingencies because we are at a pivotal point because of the progress that they have made in recent years as a result of the former president and his team pulling out of the nuclear deal.
And Leland, the White House says a deal is in sight, but says if it can't be reached in the coming weeks, and Iran's recent moves, including the latest one today, will make it, quote, impossible for the U.S. to return to the deal. Leland?
Yeah, Kellie, you named the key point, nailed it. Timing on Iran's part in terms of releasing this video is key here. Kellie Meyer in Washington. Kellie, thank you. Coming up, why some are now calling for the military to come in and deal with the Canadian truckers who are facing growing backlash in their protest against the vaccine mandates. Plus, Congress looks like they're finally going to do something about lawmakers cashing in on stocks. But there is a catch. Details after the break. It appears members of Congress do feel some sort of shame. Yes, that's news, but they have been shamed, literally, into finally writing legislation to restrict congressmen and senators from trading stocks in companies they regulate. Seems pretty basic, but this is a big change. Remember when House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said this late last year.
This is a free market, and people, we are a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
That didn't go over very well. Our partners at The Hill report a bill banning members from trading individual stocks is coming soon, and Speaker Pelosi is kind of, sort of, maybe on board. Take a listen.
It has to be government-wide. The Supreme Court has no disclosure. It has no reporting of stock transactions, and it makes important decisions every day.
Now, if you're wondering why she said it in that way, keep in mind that Speaker Pelosi and her husband made up to $30 million last year through stock trading, so explains a lot. From a number of years in Washington, learned a few things. One has to be surprised if this bill even makes it to the floor of either chamber. Perhaps it will be stuck in committee. Who knows? Vince Coglianese, editorial director of the Daily Caller, an expert of all things Washington, especially congressional tricks, joins us now. This is going to be kind of fun to watch, right?
It's going to be amazing. And also, like, you know, whatever Nancy Pelosi is saying about it now, it's only to settle down, especially her left wing. She's had a lot of progressive critics on this, Leland, because she's out there saying, well, it's a free market. Anybody can trade whatever they want. And the reality is the American people, by very wide margins, are opposed to members of Congress trading individual stocks because the conflicts of interest are totally inherent, especially for the Speaker of the House. You know, the Center for Responsive Politics found that Nancy Pelosi is worth as much as $250 million. That is a tremendous sum of money. And if Nancy Pelosi decides, and her husband, Paul Pelosi, decide to invest in any individual, say, tech company like Google, as they have many times, that really tells you about what are the chances Google is going to be regulated by this Speaker of the House. None. In fact, a Nancy Pelosi investment may have the ability to move the market in the positive direction for a company that she's investing in. And for that reason, it's quite obviously a gigantic conflict of interest that needs to be resolved.
Yeah, it's amazing, though, if you watch, there's all this bipartisanship and a bunch of Republican and Democratic senators and congressmen getting together and saying, oh, we've all agreed that we're going to have an act that does this or a bill that does that. Some say that you're going to have to put it into a blind trust. Some say that you just can't trade individual stocks. You look, though, at how many lawmakers beat the market. There may be more lawmakers who beat the market than hedge fund managers do. Are we really to believe that our members of Congress are that gifted and talented in their stock trading?
No, I think what we're to believe is that's how intertwined the government's actions are with corporate Americas now, because they're so dependent on one another. And as a result, members of Congress, using access to privileged information, are able to make these determinations. Now, of course, they probably, by and large, can get away with it because there's really no paper trail for their actions. They're just making these investments, and they can probably slip out. But it is supposed to be illegal for them to do insider trading, yet the great suspicion of the American public at large is that they're constantly doing it. It's kind of like everyone knows that, like, it's weird how members of Congress arrive at Congress and then they leave years later very wealthy. and this happens to be one of those fast tracks to that wealth, which is these incredible trades. They're just beating all of these professional traders who, by the way, on average, don't typically even beat the S&P 500, right. The professional traders, but yet members of Congress do.
Yeah, dozens of members of Congress do on both parties. This would be the question, though, and it's interesting, you have something that is wildly popular and demanded by the constituents, but somehow Congress never gets around to doing it. Is there a tipping point that this changes? Is it some kind of investigation and people are held criminally liable? Is there anything that can change it? Or do we just have to accept that our lawmakers are making money on the backside?
Well, unfortunately, all the people that would probably look into this are a part of the same class as the members of Congress who are controlling the rules here. And again, Nancy Pelosi, especially being the sixth richest member of Congress, the chances that she is going to jeopardize her own personal fortune and growth are nil. She controls the agenda right now in the House. So the idea that she's going to seriously imperil it through passing a piece of legislation that really jeopardizes it, no, there's no chance of that. Well, even if a piece of legislation passes, it'll be chock full of the kind of loopholes that allow her husband to do these things and for her to have the plausible deniability.
Yeah, her husband or her dog walker or her daughter or her best friend or something else. Hey, Vince, there's a reason we have you here to explain these things. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Leon.
Good to see you. Coming up, the police in Ottawa say the trucker protests are and we're quoting now, insurrection. Some journalists call it a threat to democracy or even treason. Is that really what's happening? We'll talk it over with one of those journalists when we come back. Live pictures right now tonight from Ottawa, Canada. That's the capital there, where truckers protesting against the vaccine mandates continue. As far as our reporter there can tell, and as we've seen today, same as the past week, it has been an entirely peaceful protest. And now America is feeling the effects. Solidarity protests shut down the Ambassador Bridge, which carries hundreds of millions of dollars in commerce a day between Canada and the United States. And some plants in the United States announced closures due to lack of parts from Canadian factories. This is going from inconvenient to highly inconvenient, and certainly threatening the economies are starting to of both sides of the border. For the folks in Ottawa, it's been miserable. Back to those live pictures. Evidently, it's difficult to get around in town, but by all reports, the protests have remained entirely peaceful. Literally peaceful, people playing hockey in the streets. Yet, listen to one of the city councilwomen describe the situation.
This is treason. This is way bigger. This is a group of well-polished, professional people that are trying to overthrow the government. It's really an insurrection.
Again, look at the pictures and trust us. We have looked through video from the past week and can find no record of anyone trying to violently overthrow the government or violence, period. The prime minister says the truckers are a bunch of racist Neanderthals and must be stopped. One professor has a solution. Andrew Cohen, journalist and associate professor at Carleton University in Ottawa, writes in Canada's largest newspaper, if facing them down means mobilizing the military as aid to the civil power, he should do it. Democracy is under siege today, not the city of Ottawa. In that struggle, Justin Trudeau, the prime minister, can give no quarter, as you might have seen. Professor Cohen is with us now. Appreciate you joining us, sir. You're serious about this. You're not gaslighting us, right?
No, I'm not gaslighting it because, Leland, these folks, not everybody, are associated, from what our intelligence tells us, with the far right. They're associated with American groups. Much of their money apparently seems to be coming from the United States. It doesn't mean there are no Canadians here. They are telling the government of Canada, agree to our demands to repeal all vaccination mandates, or we will shut down the city of Ottawa forever. What I mean by the city of Ottawa, I don't mean the whole city of Ottawa. I mean the parliamentary precinct, 30,000 people, shops, restaurants, libraries, vaccination clinics, even some schools. The government says, we're not negotiating with you. And the government says, why should we negotiate with you? We are the duly elected representatives of the people of Canada. There was an election in Canada last September. The Liberal Party won, close to a majority in Parliament. And it says, why should we negotiate with a self-appointed band of people whose weapons are trucks and who essentially have taken the city of Ottawa or part of it hostage? So that's where we are today.
But I didn't get anything wrong. There's been no violence of any type. They have not tried to enter the Parliament building and do anything, correct?
No. Okay. There has been no violence in a traditional sense.
And as I understand it, the reports of the American money and far-right groups have the same right, as, at least as I understand it, as far-left groups. I've yet to see anyone come out and say, here's the American boogeyman who's organizing this. Have you?
One of the leaders does have an association. He's been on Canadian television. But let's talk about violence for a second, Leland. The absence of violence does not mean peace. This is a residential, part of this is a residential area. For 8 days, the truckers blared their horns, 85 decibels. There were reports of intimidation. The diesel fuel was fouling the air, fireworks at night. I'm saying mainly a nuisance, but they have said they will not leave until the government agrees to their demands.
How else do workers, these are frontline essential workers, how else do people petition the government for redress of grievances if it's not a protest? Is there anything that these people could be protesting that you'd say that's important enough for them to shut down the streets of the Capitol for?
There are many ways they can protest, Leland. We have a lot. This is a capital city. I've lived in Washington and Berlin and London, and I've seen protests everywhere. This is a capital city. They're welcome to protest. There's a large Parliament Hill, like Capitol Hill is a large lawn. They can sit there from now to the spring if they'd like to. But when you bring trucks and weaponize them, there are some people who think...
Forgive me, when I think about weaponizing a truck, I think about driving it through a crowd. I don't think about parking it.
One minute. There are reports there may be arms or explosive in some of the trucks. We don't know that yet.
Come on.
And the police have been very respectful and very deferential. And one of the reasons there's been no violence is these people haven't been told to go anywhere. So think about this. You drive big trucks downtown and you tell people that unless you give in to our demands, we will shut down. Now, if they want to stand and protest and hold signs and do anything they want other than holding a city hostage, that's fine. That's what protest is. But it's not replacing or displacing the democratically elected representative.
There's a big jump here between saying we're not going to go anywhere until you discuss the vaccine mandates by a minority government. There's a big difference between that and saying they're trying to replace the government. No one, as far as I've talked to in these truckers, say they're demanding Justin Trudeau leave and any of the truckers be.
Leland, they absolutely are.
No, but they're not saying they may not like Justin Trudeau, but they're saying resign. They're not saying we're going to come grab you, and they're not threatening violence.
Resign, leave office, resign unless you agree to our demands. And their demands are lifting the vaccination mandate, which this is, by the way, Leland, you should know, Canada is something like 80% vaccinated.
Yeah, a lot of we talked to a number of the truckers who are vaccinated. I wanted to get to this issue, though, and we see there's a lot of people in these protests who are not truckers. I'm sure you've seen interviews with them. And there's a zillion people who had nothing to do with this who are bringing gas and supplies and everything else to the truckers. Is there a fear that maybe the way this is being dealt with and calling them insurrectionists and terrorists and everything else is only encouraging other Ottawans and other Canadians to come out and support these folks?
I don't see that. They're down to 250 people now. They had far more 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago than now. There are about 250 of them. There were 8,000 or 10,000. Many of those were not truckers. They were like-minded people who had some kind of grievance with the government about something.
So you got 250 people. What's the emergency?
The emergency is they have parked trucks in downtown Ottawa, which have prevented people from working, which have closed shopping centers and restaurants and denied people a livelihood, including people I know, and have shut down vaccination clinics and libraries and have brought life in the parliamentary precinct to a halt. Who do they represent to do that?
Well,
Leland,
evidently they represent themselves and a lot of other folks that we've talked to. But I understand your point about shutting down a city. Professor, we got to leave it there. But if this doesn't go away, we're having you back to talk about it, all right?
My pleasure, Leland.
Yeah, no, pleasure was all ours. We appreciate you coming on. Thank you. Long stem roses, big bouquets. Why saying I love you with flowers on Valentine's Day might be replaced with a card. We'll explain your excuse for doing that when we come back. All right, Valentine's Day, there it is. The empty shelves crisis is taking a bite out of love for sure. It's Valentine's Day. Spending is expected to reach $24 billion, with people shelling out $175 billion on average for their sweetie. That's up $165 from last year. Flowers, of course, are a huge part of that. Average price for a dozen roses up 22% from last year. $150 for a dozen roses. 95% of the country's flowers have to come all the way from South America, mostly Colombia and Ecuador, through Miami for inspection, then onto trucks. We know, obviously, there's huge trucking issues, and then to a flower shop. Joining us now, someone who's dealing with this right now, Heather Sullivan, the owner of DeRoche Flowers, West Springfield, Massachusetts. You've been in the business 26 years. The flower shop's been around since the 40s. You ever seen it like this?
No, I haven't. It's definitely been an interesting year for sure.
All right, so if you want to send a dozen roses, can you still do it even?
Definitely, yeah. For a florist that's been in the business for a long time, we've been preparing for this. So hopefully all of the florists across the United States have enough roses to meet the demand that's about to happen.
I feel like Valentine's Day is like your guys' Super Bowl. Probably actually is.
Yes, it is.
There it is. All right, so the price of flowers is way up 22%. Obviously, it's a little bit harder to get it. Are you worried at all that people are going to, with the price going up, sort of decide to do other things rather than buy flowers? If there's enough segments like this, guys now have an excuse not to buy flowers?
Gosh, I hope not. I think there's a lot of other options out there even in the floral world. You know, you don't always have to do the dozen roses. I know that myself and my staff here, you know, we're all really creative people, and we can make a beautiful spring mix. We could do tulips, we could do carnations. You know, there's a lot of other options other than roses for sure.
And are the prices of all those up too and hard to get these days or not?
Well, the price of everything does increase at a major holiday like this. We're used to seeing that. I mean, it definitely has increased over the last 2 years, but what hasn't? I think there's not really another gift that you can buy that's handmade that you can get delivered the same day. So I think it's a really great option.
There's so many businesses that have been wildly changed by the pandemic. I can imagine yours is one of them.
Yes.
Is there?
Definitely.
Yeah, no, for sure. Valentine's Day 2022, do you feel like this is sort of the end of it, and looking forward, you guys are going to be able to get back to normal, if you will?
I think so. I hope so. Actually, the pandemic has really increased global demand for flowers. So for us, it's, when people couldn't see each other and they couldn't visit each other, they sent flowers. So I hope that people continue to realize the specialness of flowers. Yeah.
The flower boom continues. Heather, we know you got a busy couple days coming up. We appreciate you taking some time with us. All right.
Thank you so much.
It's good to see you. Our social media question today, we want to know your worst Valentine's Day gift or story. We're going to read them out loud on Valentine's Day. Keep them coming in. Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Leland Vittert. Speaking of that, Elaine Gu betrayed the United States to compete for China. We asked for your opinions on it yesterday. Those are next. We heard from a lot of you about last night's report on Eileen Gu, an American who won gold for the Chinese at the Olympics in skiing. To recap, she's an American, born here, educated here, learned to ski here, but figured she could get more endorsement deals in China. So she signed on with brands like Tiffany and Louis Vuitton and Anta, the Nike equivalent in China, plus a big modeling contract as a Chinese athlete. Here's how she explains it. Must be convenient. Let's be clear. Gu chose to wrap herself in the flag of a country currently committing the worst genocide since World War II for cold, hard cash. We will keep showing you this side-by-side picture every night of the Olympics because NBC will not. Minorities in China, head shaved and shackled, lined up and waiting for a train to a concentration camp. That's on the left. It's happening as we speak. On the right is Nazi Germany lining up Jews heading to the gas chamber. Eileen Gu is allowing that and not talking about it and wrapping herself in the Chinese flag. We asked you what should happen to Eileen Gu and all her endorsement money. Rich Jablanca, I believe Eileen Gu should have her passport revoked. Stanford University must decide on their own if they should continue to honor her admission to the school. And Rich, can you imagine what will happen to any American student at Stanford this fall who dares ask Gu about her decision to compete for Team China? Dosh Wallace on Instagram, guilty of treason. She should be forced to forfeit every dollar she's made and not be bowed back into the United States. Deanne Coy Bogner, also on Instagram, along the same line. She chose China, so let her stay in China. Lisa Saunders wrote on Twitter, Gu should be prosecuted according to the laws of the United States. She's a turncoat who chooses to give up her rights to support communist China, who is one of the worst ongoing murdering, oppressive countries on the planet, and nobody objects. Well, I do. Good for you. Michael Brandy wrote, really enjoyed watching your show last night. Intended on just watching the first segment, but each subsequent segment was just as engaging. Wonderful job by you. Cool to hear the tough questions being asked. Highly recommend. Thanks, Michael. Assurances to the viewers that Michael is not a relative, but Michael, please tell your friends to watch. We appreciate your trust and work hard every night to earn it. Now, for who we didn't hear from, any of the China media bots that are allowed on Twitter. Twitter is banned in China, but they have bot farms of fake accounts mixed with China state media journalists who all have Twitter accounts, like Chen Hua, who works for China Daily and does the Politburo's dirty work. If you're wondering how the communists and Chinese are allowed to spread disinformation and propaganda, but President Trump still is banned, that's a topic for another show. Back to the Chinese bots. Here's how the Wall Street Journal is reporting it. Pro-China Twitter accounts flood hashtag critical of Beijing Winter Olympics. Researchers say many accounts are largely automated and are meant to drown out calls by advocacy groups to boycott the Beijing Games. Again, Twitter allows this. And now there is ongoing proof that the 2022 Olympics are rigged. Dozens of Olympians are currently being quarantined in Beijing after testing positive for the coronavirus. So think about this. We're just a couple of days into the game. As of Tuesday, at least 159 athletes and team officials, in addition to hundreds of Olympic personnel, have tested positive for COVID-19 since the games began. Now for the amazing, but not necessarily surprising part of this story. Out of those 159, amazingly, none of these positive cases are reported from the Chinese delegation. That's Jordan Satchel on Substack. Remember, if you're quarantined, you can't compete or train or practice, thus putting foreign athletes at a considerable disadvantage, which brings us back to Elaine Gu. Maybe she don't join Team China, so she wouldn't be protected from COVID and all but guaranteed a gold, plus all the endorsement deals she got. We'll keep looking into this. We appreciate your thoughts on social media. Keep them coming, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.